the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 102, recorded Friday, August 2nd, 2013. Philatelist.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing. Scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AVWeek. It's time for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. Welcome. Thank you so much for listening, downloading, streaming, however it is that you are listening to us. Thanks for doing it. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host. With us this week is George Tucker. He's my right and or left hand, depending on which one I need on a certain week. He also works for World Stage as their engineering coordinator, and he's my favorite New Yorker. How are you, sir?
All right. I'm all right.
Actually, you're not in New York. You're in Yonkers, so...
No,
I don't want to.
There's a state called New York, too, you know.
There is?
It's not just the city, though I love it so.
I was going to say, you would be hard-pressed to get the average New Yorker to agree to that.
Well,
New York is like Chicago and Illinois, you know. Everybody out of Chicago doesn't think that there's a rest of Illinois, so... that's just my own 2 cents as being a South Illinoiser. Speaking of Illinois, the St. Louis area where Mr. Adrian Boyd left us some time ago to go work for Avitecture. He is the senior systems designer over there. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well. Last but not least, we have a newbie, so please be nice to her, gentlemen. Her name is Ellen. Is it Juhlin? I should have asked you.
Juhlin.
Yes. She is the digital products analyst for Meyer Sound Labs, but she is also the Pro AV segment leader for the AVNu Alliance. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're gonna talk a little bit about AVB and the AVNu Alliance and what you guys have been doing. We're also going to talk about a very cool article, and it's a cool article because it describes what lumens is, and it was in Gizmodo. So that's why I think it's cool, is because a tech blog is describing for the rest of the world, and actually it was helpful. It's helpful for your green recruits to take them through and exactly explain what lumens is. Also, Bixby has a new standard, and we all love standards. The $1,000 4K TV, and also we're going to talk about a little bit about CEDIA 2013. But first, this is a story that caught my eye simply because I deal with both of these companies, and it led me to a larger question. Conference Technologies, which is based out of St. Louis, has purchased United Visual, which is out of Chicago. Here's the thing about United Visual. They've been around for about 65 years. And the question that kind of rose out of this, George, we'll kick this off with you. What does this say about our established integrators around the country? Because you have companies like, you have Ford, they're a good-sized company, right? But then you have the AVI SPLs of the world, which I don't mean this disrespectfully, but they're almost like Walmart at this point, because they're buying up all these small integrators, and they're expanding their market, and they're expanding their reach. Conference Technologies is not quite there yet, but they've purchased a fair number of different integrators at least in the Midwest, and now they've purchased a 65-year-old company that was well established. What does that say for other legacy integrators that have been around for a while?
You know, I've been thinking about this. The two things I can come up with is this company is well positioned to say, we think the economy is doing really well, or is on the verge of doing really well, which means demand will rise. We want to be ready with the resources and the materials to do it. This is a good thing. Plus, what any business wants to do is expand its coverage and become bigger and make more money. I mean, I want to do a line from Spaceballs, right? It's the quest for more money. But is it a threat? Here's my problem with it. I, in the staging and event world, went through in the early 90s watching every single staging company get bought up. Little mom and pops, the independents, get bought up by bigger companies who were established, looking to go coast to coast or cover an entire swath. And of those big collectives that became of that, not many are left. The Carabiners of the world and others went away. Now, people listening may not know who they are, but they were big players in my industry for a while, and they overexpanded too quickly. And I've reading the article, they had, what, 5?
So did they dissolve into nothing, or were they purchased by other companies?
They got broken up again,
Okay.
and certain ones kind of tried to survive, and others went away. I don't know all the salient details, but those coast-to-coast megaliths, most of them that went on a buying spree, soon departed this world as an entity. So I always worry about that. You know, when you're expanding, they said 5 in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Either they've got some kind of business model that I don't know that's really good, and I'd like to know about it, or, you know, you got to be careful here.
Well, Adrian, the same question kind of goes for you, but on a different level, because what you guys do at Avitecture, you do a lot of CAD designing, and you do the design part. Is there this may be a stupid question, but that's what I'm famous for. Is there a design or an AV consultant version of AVI-SPL?
Well, to an extent. I mean, if you look at Shen and RTKL, there's a couple, you know, fairly large established consulting firms that have multiple offices, but usually, you know, they're 1 or 2 guys. They're just covering a specific location or a geographic region. You know, CTI, I know, you know, one of the owners quite well, and they do have an interesting business model. And, you know, a lot of what they do is positioning themselves in markets that don't always have, you know, large AV support. So they've been consistently growing for the last couple of years, and you know, this is actually good to see that, you know, they're definitely thinking that the economy is getting a little better. But the other thing is they're not specifically stuck in the AV realm. They've also expanded a lot into the IT sectors. They do a lot of internal help desk situations and bringing in servers into their own facilities. So they've broadened their horizons in a lot of places that are definitely really good revenue generators for companies. And what we've seen in the last couple of years for our industry is if you're not adapting and if you're not improvising, you're going to die as a business. So, you know, it's good to see other AV firms going, we need to change what we're doing or else we're not going to be around much longer. And you see that a lot more in the mom and pop operations. They want to get out. Where do they go?
So is that maybe how that you think that they've expanded by doing all of the IT centric stuff?
I think that's definitely a key portion, or at least a good component of some of the things that they've been doing over the years. They've got a really, really good, strong design crew. They definitely have a really good management team. So I think they're seeing segments of the market that may, or looking at different verticals that maybe have not been traditionally AV friendly, and they're saying, hey, there's an area that we can go after, and they're positioning themselves for it.
Ellen, you work for Meyer Sound, so obviously you work for a manufacturer. How does this work when one company buys another? When it comes to dealerships and not exclusive deals, but you know, whether it's you guys or it's, you know, Extron or AMX or who have you, different manufacturers have different deals with different companies, different integrators. How does that work when one company buys another?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually with LCS Audio before Meyer Sound acquired LCS, so kind of saw a bit of that. You know, it had some common distributors, but not a lot of overlap, and so there was, you know, some kind of, you know, hard conversations there of, you know, breaking up with some distributors and making sure that we weren't kind of, you know, overextended in some areas, and you know, and getting the right kind of group of coverage around the world. We had, so there were slightly different distribution models that between LCS and Meyer Sound, and so it's kind of a period over, like, you know, probably about a year or so to kind of reconcile all that and sort it out.
Very good. All right, guys, moving on. Ellen is from the AVNu Alliance, as well as being from Meyer Sound. One of the things that that was interesting about Infocom this year was the AVNu Alliance area. And not that this was the first time. This wasn't the first time they had an area. I went to the one last year in Vegas, and it was good. It wasn't great. It was good. And I will be very honest with you, Ellen. I have never. I was not a big fan of AVB. And I say I wasn't. It is in past tense. Last year, let's say 2012, and even Infocom 2012, it was really cool to see all of the different audio components hooked into each other. That's really great. But the one thing that I kept saying last year is that there's a V, as in Victor, as in video, in AVB, and I wasn't seeing it. And so it was interesting. It was really neat to see that this year with Barco and a couple other people that were showing active video with the protocol. A couple of articles that we're gonna touch on here. One is obviously you guys have a new AVB loudspeaker, Meyer Sound being. How does that work in relation to the entire AVB infrastructure? Is there an RJ45 jack on the back? How does that work?
Yeah, there's an RJ45 on the back, and it's the type of product would be an endpoint, right? So you can send audio to it, and it accepts a couple channels, but mostly you're going to use one for the speaker. And we've got an installation right now in Hong Kong where we've got a biamp Tessera system that's sending AVB to Cal. We've been working with a number of manufacturers that are in the AVNu Alliance, and iPlugfest and things, and so we've kind of gotten to know other products and how they interact and stuff, and so it was a great opportunity for us to kind of work together outside of AVNu Alliance and make a a system that was integrated with AVB from multiple manufacturers.
So you worked with all of the different and again I'm still learning the AVB. Start from the very beginning and give me the nomenclature for all of the different components of AVB. What is the start point? Is there a transmitter?
Sure. So there's what we call endpoints and bridges, right? So endpoints is anything we can have talkers or listeners, and it's kind of the reverse of kind of what we know as speakers and microphones, because a microphone is actually a talker on the AVB side, and a speaker is a listener. So it's kind of going inward to the network instead of kind of what we're accustomed to in the audio world. So you have a talker that's creating an AVB stream, and that stream could have one channel in it or several channels, and then might advertise that it has several different kinds of streams or different channel combinations. And then endpoints that are listeners can request to subscribe to a stream that a talker is providing. So it sends this request over the network through the bridges that are in between the endpoints, and each bridge can check for itself and say, yes, I have enough bandwidth, or no, I don't. And if all the switches say yes, then the stream is established, and the bridges assign this bandwidth to the stream, and it starts flowing. So that's kind of like the basic how this kind of hooks up and gets connected.
What happens if one of them says, no, I don't have enough bandwidth? Do you just not get any sound, or? You
don't get any sound, okay. Yeah. Then you have to, reconfigure your network, or, choose something different. It's kind of it's going to work, or it's not going to be available to you. So really kind of want to guarantee that something is going to happen when you request something, and not a kind of mid-level attempt at trying to make something work that might fuzz out at some point. So we really want to make sure that something is working, and that the bandwidth is guaranteed available for that stream while it's flowing.
When one of the things that I found interesting was the AVB certification process. Did you do that with these speakers?
The AVNu certification process is not open for endpoints at this time.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
well, there you go.
Yeah. So, but we do intend, to be to get Cal certified, as we do with any of our AV products that Meyer Sound makes.
Why wouldn't the listeners be certified as well? I'm just wondering.
Oh, they would be, but they're still. So the certification process focused on bridges first, because kind of early on we realized that there was a potential of a kind of chicken and the egg problem. If the bridges aren't going to be available because there's no demand for with no endpoints in the market, but you can't have endpoints unless you have bridges. And so we kind of made an executive decision within the AVNu Alliance that the bridges should go first, because you can't have endpoints without bridges. And so even though it was like not quite a really solid business case of yes, there are all these endpoints, but we knew, within the AVNu Alliance about the products that people were contributing and that we're working on. And so the certification program is focused on bridges first, and that opened earlier this year, and we're kind of expecting the first certified products to be announced, pretty shortly.
That was one of the things that you guys said at the pavilion, at the AVNu Alliance pavilion, was that those should be shortcoming. George Leonard Susskind, one of the articles that we have here, wrote about AVB. This is the death of the AV system. And I don't think he meant it, at least I didn't take it as a negative. But he was talking about the virtualized matrix switchers and the fact that this is going to be the death of, obviously the death of analog is, or at least the minimization of analog is something we're already watching. How accurate, though, is Leonard when he talks about the death of the AV system as a whole when it comes to AVB?
Well, I think that really depends on the time frame that you're speaking of, no? Mm-hmm. In the near future, for the next 4 or 5 years, I don't think, like the Mark Twain quote, it's a little bit exaggerated. But beyond that, look, it's been happening in the live world forever. The DAWs and the digital workstations that those are more and more becoming a better part of it. Dante is becoming more and more of an essential part of what live guys do right now. And they are looking at AVB, and they're waiting for it to be what it's supposed to be for them. But I don't think the death is imminent, but I think it is eventual. Yeah, just sort of like our sun, though. It's going to blow up sometime into a red star, right? It's going to cause a lot of problems, but it's a little bit off.
What happened? Never mind. I'm going to ask that question. Adrian, is Leonard on the mark with this, or is he a bit far off?
No, I don't think he's far off. I mean, I think he's looking at what we have on our horizon in the terms of our connection points and what we've been talking about the last 10 years of AV and IT and the whole networking environment becoming closer and closer, and those blurred lines are becoming a lot more evident with some of the newer technologies coming out. I mean, we talk about AVB, we're seeing some real strong products coming out that have AVB. We're seeing that companies like SVSI have products that are definitely making people consider, I don't need to have that huge rack of gear anymore. We're looking at a lot more software-based solutions, from companies like Mersive and they're like, where, the idea of you having to physically have a box to send a signal somewhere, it's starting to go away. When we look at the one of the hot buzzwords is that BYOD, where someone just walks in and my device, I just need to connect it to the network and I can be sending signal to whatever it is. So, Leonard's article, I think, is definitely on par with what we're seeing day to day and what we're hearing from our clients, what we're seeing in the trade shows. And, and I think the next couple of years, we're going to have rapid changes in technology. I think the cycles are going to be coming, they're going to get closer together and a lot faster than what we've been seeing.
One of the things that IT people much smarter than I am have told me that they've looked at AVB and said their biggest concern is not the fact that the network, it's the fact that the switches are not there. Some of the switches are not there yet. And and it's not that all of them, right? There's some of them that couldn't handle the AVB. Ellen, how much? I guess I should ask this way from your AVNu Alliance side. How much have you guys been in contact with people like Cisco and HP, the guys that are making these routers and switchers?
Yeah, so Cisco is a member of the AVNu Alliance, and they have not disclosed their product roadmap to us. Some companies have been more forthcoming than others, but from working with Broadcom and Marvell, companies that are making these chips, that are going into the bridges, the way that they work is that they, when there's a new standard, new technology, they add it into their chips early on without it being enabled, just to make sure that it doesn't mess anything up. So they've been, adding this kind of silicon layer that's required by AVB for, the last like 7 or 8 years at least. So there is quite a lot of silicon out there that can handle AVB. And it's kind of waiting to be unlocked, but it's proven itself in that it's not getting in the way of anything. It doesn't interfere with other things. It's something that is pretty proven out just in working with Ethernet as it is today.
Okay, very good. One other question. Go ahead.
I have a question now, actually, because we're talking about all this. It's coming. There's been some, still debating some of the qualifiers for the standard. And I wonder if anyone is taking the lesson from MIDI. Now, Tim has heard me say this a lot. MIDI is a pure example of a multi-manufacturer standard.
The only
that
example.
They finally. Well, yes, that's probably true. Well, you're saying successful standard.
Yes, the only successful standard. Don't get me started on CEC.
We can talk CEC,
Do
but
not talk to CEC.
That failed too.
That and 3D are
CEC
banned.
now.
CEC and 3D are banned.
I think I just opened up a whole can of worms.
I just
Ellen,
made that up right now.
You see my point, though, is that model something that everyone's talking about when they're working on these standards, or are we still dealing with the infighting? Because they really did settle their scores and say, okay, we have to make something that will do X, Y, and Z. You have a certain set of packets or part of the bit code that's only for you, and then you can sort of be exclusive. But for all of us to benefit, we have to apply to this standard. And I still see a lot of people infighting about, we're going to go our own way.
That's interesting. Yeah. So MIDI is a great example of companies working together, and I would say that for the great majority of the time that like people within the AVNu Alliance are very dedicated to the cause of bringing the standardized AVB to market, and realizing that it creates a larger pie for everybody to have slices of, and that it's just generally going to benefit our industry, and from the company side and from the end user side. That's been the kind of modus operandi of the AVNu Alliance and all the companies within it. So I know that there's been discussions, with integrators and consultants and things of talking about like, Dante versus AVB, or other things versus AVB, Kubernetes, but I would say that within the AVNu Alliance, within the number of companies that have contributed to the IEEE standards, there's a lot of overlap between AVNu and those companies, that most of the discussions, and I'd say like that 95% of the discussions have been about the technical side and about getting it to market and making sure that it's going to work for everybody, and thrown a lot of different use cases in there for things from theme parks to home entertainment systems to there's a lot of different kinds of things that sometimes seem at odds, but we've kind of worked through quite a lot of those in very respectful ways, and not had kind of like storm outs or anything like that. So it's been a really great working experience.
Ellen, another one of the articles that I wanted to add to this was one by a buddy of ours, John Huntington, and in it he writes very glowingly about AVB, but he mentions Dante and the fact that it's a proprietary system. He doesn't. I didn't take it as directly correlated the two, or wasn't trying to compare apples to apples. Is there something that people can compare AVB to, and if so, what is it?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess as far as comparison, there's nothing really out there that is built into Ethernet the way that AVB is. So from that side, to get something equivalent, you'd have to do a lot of manual configuration of a network, and have some overhead and set up, do quite a lot of manual setup to get to the same kind of level, and even then you still don't quite have the the time synchronization in there. It's there's no other kind of proprietary system that kind of has it all in the same way that AVB does. And Audinate is also a member of AVNu Alliance, and they've expressed that they're intending to get their product certified as well. So that's I'm sure that we'll see some transition of Dante to AVB and interoperability from there on.
George, your World Stage does a lot of staging and events. You guys do you use Dante, first of all?
Yes, we do.
Okay, but I know you and I have also talked about CobraNet as well.
Yes. More Dante really at this juncture.
More Dante.
We have a lot of Yamaha boards. So
well, it's interesting that Ellen mentions the fact that the guys make Dante are part of the alliance. Can you see maybe in the future, whip out your crystal ball, where this becomes the replacement for CobraNet and Dante?
Well, first of all, I get my theremin music in the background as I say this. Right? Anyway, I couldn't whistle that. Yes, I would hope that that's the migration. I would hope that we would be able to say we've established this, and with only a small bit of pain, sort of like a flu shot, we can move on to the full implementation to this AVB wider network and a little bit more open space and not have to rely on proprietary. It's a hope, and it would be disappointing if it didn't, but they've made a lot of noise about it being so. So short of all of the companies involved going belly up, I think it's going to be inevitable. I hope.
Adrian, is there, when it comes to control systems and things of that nature, and just beyond the pro side, right? I mean, George does staging. I have a lot of friends who work on tour, and they love things like CobraNet and Dante. It depends on the guy. It depends on what he likes, right? So I see a lot of good uses for that. What kind of uses are there in not pro, but like the commercial and the residential area for something like AVB, if not AVB specifically?
Well, I mean, there's tons of applications, for AVB. We're speccing in our designs a lot of Tessera products because it gives us we can do more with less. I guess is a good way of putting it. Instead of having multiple CobraFlex, audio flexes with CobraNet, I can do the same thing with, a new server and a server I/O and a couple Expo and XP boxes, in the Tessera family, and get all that functionality and get definitely more on the DSP engines. So it's definitely a lot more efficient. One of the big things which we're right now trying to get our sales to understand is now that we're going into a lot more heavy network types of situations, we can't be using the bargain basement prosumer Ethernet switches and routers. And we have to start going and looking at enterprise class products, layer 2, layer 3, so that we can guarantee that signal's getting from A to B. And sometimes the sticker shock is our salespeople and some of our clients are like, why is it so much? I'm like, you guys don't bat an eye when you're talking about your network switches in your server closets for your computers, but everyone freaks out when they see an $8,000 PoE network switch that we have to do AV control and AVB and all the other stuff on.
Well, answer me a question. Does it have to be the $8,000, enterprise class? I mean, there are enterprise classes for less 24-port switches that are not that much money.
There are some, but a lot of things we're running into is who makes them and then tracking them down, and then when sometimes you're dealing with Cisco, it's like, oh my gosh, is that box going to work with what we want to do? So a lot of integrators, ourselves included, we're still trying to find a lot of those boxes that are going to do all the stuff, like the little netgears and the D-links are okay for your simple stuff, but now we're having to do you want to run a whole building for an AV control system. That cheap netgear switch isn't going to do the job because you're going to have those bottlenecks. And a lot of times we see it as simple as the volume control. You want to do the volume control up and up, and if you have a touch panel that's now on a LAN that's PoE powered or through an injector, if you don't have a really reliable switch, volume up and volume down are not going to, be at the exact same moment as you need them to be. So,
valid point.
By the way, Ellen, real quickly, I said this to one of your counterparts at the AVNu Alliance. I mentioned that I had been asking for the V. I also say this. InfoComm 2013 was interesting for me because up until that point, I had been comparing side by side AVB and HD-based T. And it wasn't honestly until looking at the two products on the show floor and talking to both of your guys' people, both groups' people, that wasn't very fair of me because they are markedly different. And they both have good use cases and they both have good technologies. And so I guess I apologize to you on the behalf of the AVNu Alliance for doing that for a couple of years. So.
No problem.
You are listening to AVWeek. I'm just a jerk sometimes. Just ask George. That guy right there is George Tucker. Adrian Boyd is also with us, and Ellen Juhlin from Meyer Sound. Moving on. Let's talk about Bixby and systems design standards. I almost said. Here's the thing. This is something that is coming out. It's called the Bixby 005. It is the Security Systems Design Standard for Security Systems Design. Adrian, how integrated are we getting, how intertwined, I guess is the best way to put that, are we getting when it comes to emergency notification and security designs?
Quite a lot, because when we look at it, we're, over the years, an AV integrator has been touching this in one shape or form, on the low voltage side. We've been integrating security systems. When we talk to our buddy Matt Scott, he integrates security in a lot of his products and on his residential business. So in the consumer world, I mean, we're still, we integrate security in one shape or form. Either that's through, our control systems with, keypad and access control. If we're working in the government space, we're doing some semblance of security in terms of non-secure and secure AV systems. So when we talk about safety and security, it's always there in one segment or another. I think it's going to become closer and closer because Don has said on many shows, who are the people that are most well suited for a lot of these different groups and technologies. It's the AV guy, because we're the jack of all trades when it comes to just about every industry. We have to touch it, we have to integrate it, we have to make it talk to something else. So we're well positioned to do a lot of these things. And Bixby and Infocom have had a long-standing relationship for the last couple of years in trying to streamline installation practices, design guides, and you name it, because they understand that, both these two, standards and organizations, they serve the best collective interest of everyone.
George, when it comes to, do you guys have to do any kind of emergency notification for staging? I would think you would have to.
Not generally. I mean, that's usually handled by the facility.
Okay.
I mean, there is a voice of God mic, and we're all on headsets and stuff like that. And voice of God mic being the mic that goes to the PA from, say, a central board that someone can make an announcement. Generally, it's the, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats kind of stuff.
I want that job.
Yeah, I know, right? That'd be a great gig.
It would be. But when it comes to...
I'm Don Pardo.
Oh, jeez. That's the job I want, is
exactly
the announcer for SNL.
But we do a lot of integration work these days, and tying into life safety systems is something we have to be aware of, and we sort of hand it off to the contractor who does that. But
all right, so is this something that eventually you'll have to worry about, because when you're tying into the different systems, and Bixby is not a stranger to us and members of Infocom, because we've worked with them before on not only the green AV stuff, but some other things. Is this a good thing, the fact that we're throwing this out there to have another standard, or is this just kind of like another evolution of what they call the ESS, which is the Electric Safety and Security System Design Implementation?
You're asking me that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
I think it's a natural evolution, and it's good for everybody to have their talking points and know that there's a greater system that they need to be aware of. How far that'll be integrated between trades, I don't know yet. I mean, we talk a lot about convergence on this show and other articles in the trades, that we're all sort of merging into one industry, basically. So we're going to have to know at least a little bit about it, enough still. But I think life safety will always be that very specific division of some trade, because it's life safety.
Yeah.
You can't,
Yeah.
you don't, You don't want to have to be the guy who puts in DVD players and no life safety because you're not really doing that. Although I do have one other comment, though. This guy, Jerry Bowman, have you ever seen more alphabet soup behind somebody's name? I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abbreviations.
One of the main Crestron guys in Chicago, his name is John Lamberson. He calls those guys stamp collectors. So,
yeah.
I
love John.
He's a really good guy. He's too stupid. He's too smart for my own good, though.
Yeah, right.
I always feel stupid when I end up talking to him. So, Ellen, is there something
we talked about standards a lot, but also remember these are really good things for us to try to achieve to, that next level of. There's a goal that we can kind of work towards in trying to make ourselves better.
Why would we want to do that?
I feel inspired.
Ellen, when it comes to, do you guys have to do anything when it comes to emergency notification or making sure you're up to a certain standard, or is it just making sure that you can spit out a specific SPL?
Well, one thing that we added into a number of our products is the ability to hook up like a fire mute to have a simple contact closure that will just mute everything, and to be able to also kind of share that control like over a network, assuming that it's still available during that time. On the Cal loudspeaker, also have like a kind of switch to a backup mic too, to be able to make an announcement or to receive an input from something that is making that announcement too. So it's something to quickly switch over to a backup input and for emergency announcements.
Okay, very good. All right, moving on to CE Pro, or not CE Pro, but CEDIA 2013. The article is from CE Pro, and our good friend Miss Julie Jacobson. She says, Nest will open an API. Dun dun dun. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so it's not a great prediction because the CEO of Nest is going to be the keynote speaker at CEDIA. But it's a really good, educated guess. It's not like she has any inside information, but it's a great educated guess on Julie's part. Actually, Ellen, we'll start with you on this. When it comes to integrating, not that you guys do a lot of home stuff, but when it comes to getting these things that are not necessarily in AV, but they've made a really big hit outside of AV. Is it important? I mean, how important is it for guys like Extron and AMX and Crestron to be able to integrate with them to where they can start talking to them and controlling them and integrating the entire house with something that somebody's already went out and purchased?
Yeah, we've put a lot of development work into making it easy for people to integrate with our products, and publishing a lot of the standards that we use, like open sound control, and we also have like a really simple command line interface, so that we make it really easy for programmers of those devices, those touch screens, things to tie in to our systems and receive back information about when things are muted or what the level is, and changing some presets and stuff like that. So we've done a lot of work in that area to make that simple for people.
Very cool. George, is this a big deal? The fact that that Tony Fidel, I think is how you say his last name, is coming to CEDIA, talking about obviously putting more and more Nests into home and residential, and hopefully maybe giving people an API where control programmers can start talking to them and getting feedback and giving us a nice pretty little screen on our Crestron controllers.
I think it's absolutely necessary, and on twofold actually. One, in order for Nest to grow beyond the confines of the GWiz Gizmodo crowd, it needs to be able to implement with other systems or create its own. And what's the easiest path, right? What's the path of least resistance? Getting others to hook into your stuff. So I think definitely that's what that's all about with them. They have to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come up with a few other sort of off-market or consumer market branded stuff that they can control their thermostat with, and that will expand out eventually. It's the model that a lot of these guys seem to be following lately. But I also think this is one of those things that may just be that next little niche-y step up the mountain for mass market home automation, because this thing has has received so much attention. I speak English. So much attention from that mass market crowd that they tend to make fun of the higher end stuff, but that low cost automation systems that a lot of our industry is now sort of trying to at least tentatively put their toe into that lower cost mid-market stuff. This is a good attention getter. So for both sides, I think it's going to work out well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that low cost control stuff. Go ahead, Ellen.
I had a question about the Nest integration too, because I think, and just reading about it, I was curious about whether they're aiming to possibly go into like high-end hotels or something, and where they would need to have some sort of additional integration for control. That could be a next kind of business leap for them. But I'm wondering what you guys think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that they could do is, whether it's integrating in a hotel or like condo units, they may actually start doing other controls as well. And that's, I guess I shouldn't say that's the thing that worries me, but you look at stuff like that, and I've written before and spoken before about my experiences with Trane and Honeywell, where they'll come into different organizations and they'll say, hey, we can give you control over your HVAC system, absolutely, but we can also let you control your lights and let you control this, that, and the other. So it almost feels a little Trojan horse-ish when it comes to Nest, because you know what, it's a slick little piece. I say that, having experience. I've got one at the house, and it's a neat little device. So, Adrian, is this a neat thing with them giving us the API?
I think it's a general evolution of what Nest is trying to do, and everyone remembers it's sometimes it's not convenient to take your phone or your internet-enabled device to change your thermostat, especially if you're have a dedicated control system or something else. It's a pain in the butt I got to use my phone to change my thermostat, but I have my control system that does my lights and all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think Nest is certainly doing something cool, but this also opens up a lot of broader other things. There were two articles that come down the wire this week. One was when smart homes get attacked by Forbes magazine, that talked about how there are a ton of these smart, homes that have got all these internet-enabled devices and control systems that you literally can become the ghost of the machine and start turning people's lights on and off and playing with their HVAC. And the other one was a lot of the, if you didn't read, that came out from CNN just recently, was that a hacking group had found that one of a couple models of Samsung smart TVs had a couple vulnerabilities, and they could actually hack into the television and use the embedded camera and watch you as you were watching TV.
Mm-hmm. Oh, jeez.
So, when we become definitely a lot more of a connected society with a lot of our technology, but now we're finding that, this is cool, but then your neighbor next door can start playing with your gear. So,
well, that also makes us a more vulnerable society as well, is what it sounds like.
Very true.
Not to be paranoid, but
can we say Prism?
Well, yeah. That's the thing is, and not even Prism. 1984, dude. Do you remember that there's a scene in the book where they're all supposed to do exercises, and the TV talks back to them and says, you're not 197254, you're not exercising.
Well, it even gets into other things that not to go off on the rails, but a couple of years back that California was talking about that they wanted to put into law the ability for when people put in these smart thermostats that they could remotely control the user's output so they could all be green and
the
so on.
The state?
Yes.
Well, actually, the power companies wanted it so that they could avoid brownouts by forcibly lowering the load shedding of each individual home and business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, in California, they got into trouble there.
Well, yeah, but still, that's a great idea. Give the power company the ability to raise and lower my thermostat. Are you kidding me? What happens when they don't make enough money, and so they're going to start raising it?
Yeah.
Well, that and you also look at there's been some controversy the last couple of years about these intelligent power meters. That a lot of power companies are putting on their homes.
Mm-hmm.
Where people they're always connected and they're talking to something. So.
Yep. Yeah, George mentioned the lower cost control systems. We congratulations, I guess that is the best way to put it, to Control4, who is now on the NASDAQ. and they are currently trading as of 2:48 Central Time on Friday the 2nd. They're trading at 19.45. So if you'd like to buy stock in that, go ahead. I'm not telling you to or not to, because I'm not a stockbroker. So, but that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, think about it.
See where it goes.
Well, here's the thing: like, how many AV companies are publicly held? I guess is the best way to put that.
Well, there have been some over the years, but a lot of them have gone. They've been purchased by VC firms and private investment companies and pulled off, the public and put back into private ownership in one shape or form.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about things like
sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like Meyer and Bosch and
was Colorado VNet?
Who?
Was Colorado VNet publicly held?
I
can't
remember.
remember.
And then they crashed and burned.
Yeah, and then they came back, and then they crashed, and then they crashed another TO. So TIO. Excuse me.
TIO.
I'm on the fence about this. I mean, they just raised what is the Julie Jacobson from CE Pro tweeted out that it was something like $500 million in capital that they could have at their disposal.
Disposal. You're having a problem. You've already been drinking, haven't you?
Oh no, I only wish I was, buddy. The grand mal seizure, I think. But they have a lot of money at hand, but they have to also satisfy what the investors want, so that could stifle creativity and innovation into markets. The investors may want money back and say, no, this market, that's what the capital is. Don't look at these small, long tail type products, which could eventually make them a leader in something. They want it now.
Okay, but I'll give you the flip side of that.
Yeah.
A lot of times, sometimes stockholders are idiots, but a lot of times,
sometimes
they're also the where the people live, right? And this is not the ivory towers. These are people who work a 9-to-5 job and this, that, and the other. They could actually possibly guide, control for, and force them to be a bigger player in certain areas simply to get a return on the money, but it would push them to evolve faster and better maybe than they would have if they hadn't gone public.
Yeah, I mean it's a hard. I mean, look, I worked for Crestron for a long time, and one of the things that they were very prideful of was that it was owned by one man, and they could make decisions and turn on a dime, and they had nobody to answer to except the guy who owned the place.
Yeah,
and he would do things that everybody thought was crazy, and most of them turned out to be darn good and really smart stuff. So. There's that debate, Crestron can go and build a 100,000 square foot research and development center, complete with an FCC testing center and all these other fun electric, lightning proofing and
Faraday
testing of their
cages.
systems.
Yeah,
Faraday cage systems. I mean, look, they have one of the 2 or 3 FCC test facilities in the world, or at least in the United States. That's private. They can do this very quickly, and that's the advantage. But they don't have the capital on hand all the time to do it. So
yeah,
True.
I would say it's similar at Meyer Sound, where we have the ability to be able to do a lot of research and interesting projects that stakeholders may not be voting for. But we've got a lot of interesting projects that some of them work out really well, some of them don't. But many things have gone on to be really great products that were thought of as being impossible or not worth doing. So.
Well, that's the thing is I look at Meyer Sound, it being one guy and Crestron being one guy. There are some things that wouldn't have happened, or maybe eventually they would have happened, but had it not been one person's decision, quote unquote, some certain things just would not have gotten done in the industry.
The risks that are taken sometimes with private firms have huge payoffs.
Yeah.
Whereas in a public company, it might be it can turn out very badly. The big thing to remember is there's a big difference in the regulation between a public company and a private company. And, sometimes the rules for public companies can be very stifling. I mean, there's certain things you cannot do anymore that you could do if you were a private entity.
Yeah. And then the payoff is not just for the company itself, it's for the industry as a whole. It's interesting how, yes, there's a payoff for the company for the bottom line, but it also pushes technology forward. So it's kind of neat to see. All right, guys, one last story, and then we'll cut you guys loose to go have fun this weekend. from my hometown paper, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, written by a guy named Joe Williams. He's actually a pretty cool little guy. A pretty cool guy. He asked the question, and I'll ask it directly to you guys. Ellen, we'll start with you. Does the digital switch, in other words, the digital sunset, mean the end of the drive-in movie?
Yeah, there's, we're seeing some interesting trends, in watching the kind of like switch from analog to digital in the audio industry, and then, seeing again the switch from kind of digital to networking. And I think, at this point, there's a lot of, kind of high-end expensive things happening, but that over time with, kind of the pull from consumer products, that it's really going to drive down prices. And, maybe there's a kind of lull here when things are kind of at that, too expensive for, the kind of like drive-in kind of businesses like that. But that over time there could be a wider range of things that are cheaper. Good point.
Adrian, your old hometown, is this going to spell the end of the drive-in movie?
I think it's going to make it probably be a lot more difficult for a lot of the small drive-in operations. I mean, the drive-in theater there's not a lot of them left.
No, in town here there's 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, it used to be a somewhat of a rite of passage. Depending on when you were born, to you go on a date to a drive-in movie, and that we're slowly losing that. But there were definitely some. When you read the article, it's when your hours are limited in functioning, and the cost for you to become a digital compatible environment, is in the 80 to 100,000 or more range, just so you can be compliant with what the studios want to do, and this is all driven by the studios. They want to get away from celluloid production. They want to get away from what a lot of they determine as holes in their distribution network, because they want to control distribution to limit pirating and a lot of other things. And this is definitely a method that they can do that, but it hurts those smaller operations. A lot of the drive-in theaters around the country, I mean, they're not tied to Warenberg or Regal Cinemas or Cineplex Odeon, the big theater conglomerates. Yeah. So they don't have a lot of oomph behind them. And, there'll probably be some around, but they'll probably go away. But you've also seen in a lot of the DIY forums and for home theater and stuff like that, there's a huge uptick in the homemade drive-in theater in your backyard. Getting a low-cost projector and like a pop-up screen or an inflatable screen, and a lot of people are making their own drive-in theater to relive that nostalgia because there's not one near them anymore.
No, that's a good point. George, is digital gonna finally put the final nail on the coffin for drive-in theaters?
Yeah, it seems like it is, doesn't it? Well, I mean, there's a few out there that said they can do it, but it seems like it's only 5 or 10% of the existing. I forget. It said something like 650 still exist in some form or another. About 300 of those are really active on a regular basis. It's too sad. Although I don't see why this wouldn't be a really good marketing opportunity for a couple of the projection system manufacturers. They talked about the rebate in this article, about how they did the same thing they did for the indoor theaters. A rebate plan costs you less, but you need to raise a certain amount. But this could be sort of a community building. Yeah, a lot of these people aren't your client, but if your name's out there all the time and you can get a really good buzz off of helping a few of these, homegrown drive-ins that are still struggling to stay in, it would be a great opportunity. You might just get other manufacturers to join in.
You might, but here's this is the other side of that. Is there anybody out there that makes good high-end digital projectors that could benefit from that? You look at the main big boys. You've got Digital Projection. You've got Barco. You've got Christie. These guys. Sony. Well, I guess Sony would be the one that would actually could actually benefit. Where you run a Sony ad every time you run a movie. Yeah. The only problem is Sony's divisions don't talk to each other, so that's the only problem with that. I don't know. I do lament it. I every summer I say I'm going to take my kids. There's a couple here in the area still, and for one reason or another, we just don't. And so I'm going to have to do that. So All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. This has been AV Week. With us has been Ellen Juhlin from Meyer Sound. She is the digital products analyst, but also she works with AVNu Alliance. She's their Pro AV segment leader. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been great.
How can people find either you or Meyer Sound or the AVNu Alliance?
MeyerSound.com and AVNu Alliance, or AVNu.org, sorry.
AVNu.org.
Yep.
And that's AVNu
Yep.
.org. Mr. Adrian Boyd, so nice to talk to you, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to talk to everybody, too.
Absolutely. How can people...
You're now like in season 2 now.
Is that what I am?
Season 3.
Season 3.
Season 3, yeah.
Yeah, Ellen, we just hit our 100th episode, so a couple weeks
congratulations.
ago. So, yeah, thank you.
Need to get those syndication rights going.
Yeah, we tried that once. It didn't work out.
We're talking to Netflix. Don't tell anyone.
Ooh, that would be awesome. George just gave me an idea. How can people find you and Avitecture?
They can find me on, Avitecture on the web, which is www.avitecture.com. They can find me on Twitter, which is the_AV_CAD_guy, the longest Twitter handle in the known universe, I think. And on LinkedIn and all the other places.
At least the one with the most underscores, I think.
Well, true, yeah.
All right. Thank you again. Last but not least, Mr. George Tucker 2s. How can people find you, sir?
If you look up Tucker 2s and it's a social platform, I am there.
Okay.
There you go.
I've got to do something with that someday.
Easy as peasy.
Easy peasy. So yeah, at Tucker 2s plus Tucker 2s. Are you Tucker 2s?
I write for a number of trade periodicals and such, but you'll find them all as I post them there.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
No, you said, are you?
I don't know where I was going. So
okay.
It's Friday. My brain's gone. So don't follow me on Twitter if you would, please. But go follow us on Twitter, the AVNation folks, that is. We're at AVNation TV on Twitter, but go by the website, avnation.tv. avnation.tv, you'll find this program and a host of monthlies. We have a control program. We have two projection shows starting this month being August. One focusing exclusively on the Pico projection market, and one just looking at projectors in general. We've got the Red Band coming out with another one. That's Chris Netto and his band of crazies, which George Tucker is a proud member of. The Education Show and a bunch of others. So check that out if you would, please. avnation.tv. avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. It's all the time we have for AV Week.